Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I welcome you to worship. I'm the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore. I'm a minister at this congregation, along with the Reverend Jennifer Brower and the Reverend Jay Brooks. I'm joined today by our worship associate, Sandra Frank. We come together to worship today under our tent, sitting in the beauty of nature and in the presence of one another. Here we are gathered. To those hardy among you, here in coats and jackets and gloves, I say to you, I grew up in Michigan, and it is not cold. I offer these opening words from the Reverend Sue Iyer. Spirit of life and love, we have gathered here in search of answers to hard questions. We have come in search of understanding, in search of community. We have come in search of hope and healing. Let this be a place not only of searching, but of discovery. Let this be a place of learning and of wisdom. Let this be a place not only of meeting, but of connection. Let this be a place where healing fosters giving and hope fosters service. We light our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
I'd like all to join in the reciting of the words of affirmation. The congregation's words of affirmation express the purpose and intention of our gathering in religious community. Many here and online know the words by heart, others do not. To keep us all together as one community, we will say the words of affirmation as call and response. I will say a line and you repeat after me. Love is the doctrine of this congregation.
Love is the doctrine of this congregation.
The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer.
The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer.
To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other.
This do we affirm and covenant with each other.
So today, our text, so to speak, is the book, The Art of Gathering, by the author Priya Parker. And I offer you a reading from that text. The way we gather matters. Gatherings consume our days and help determine the kind of world we live in. We spend much time in uninspiring, underwhelming moments that fail to capture us, to change us in any way or connect us with one another. As much as gatherings may disappoint us, though, we tend to keep gathering in the same ways. We focus on the mechanics of gathering. My lens, says Parker, and the lens I want to share with you, places people and what happens between people at the center of every coming together. We gather to solve problems we can't solve on our own. We gather to celebrate, to mourn, to mark transitions. We gather to show strength. We gather to honor and acknowledge. We gather to build. We gather to welcome. And we gather to say goodbye. Gatherings crackle and flourish when there is willingness and generosity of spirit to try.
Today's offering is for the North Shore Soup Kitchen and the AIDS Center of Queens County to provide holiday meals. Please use your smartphone or other device to make a donation on the UUCSR website, uucsr.org, or leave a donation in the basket at the back of the tent as you leave the service. A volunteer will be available after the service to tell you more about this special collection.
I'd like you now to take a moment of silence, reflection, meditation, or prayer. Get comfortable as you can in your chilliness. We gather in this moment for reflection, for rest, for meditation. Take note of your breath, hampered as it may be by your need to wear a mask. Take care to breathe carefully, finding some ease in breathing. Take note of your body. You may feel cold, but feel warmed by your inner light. Feel warmed by this community of care. Take note of where you are, the beauty of this land, the company of friends, companions in this journey of the Spirit. Breathe. Bring to mind at this moment one thing you need from this time and this place and these people. Know that you may ask for this thing. Bring to mind one thing that you offer to share in this time, in this place, with these people. Remember to offer this thing. Here we are gathered. Here we are gathered. In peace may we give and receive and build community. May it be so.
Have courage, my soul, and let us journey on. Though the night is dark, and I am far from home, thanks be to God, the morning light appears. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. The storm is passing over. 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 The storm is passing over.
Many thanks to our music director, Stephen Smith, and the choir. Yes. I think you all are kind of liking having more space, though, to move around. I have to figure out how to do that. Keep that up. So, in her book, The Art of Gathering, Priya Parker sets out the premise that we don't really think as deeply as we should about why we gather. That often we are not clear about the purpose of our gatherings and do not make the practical choices that flow from that purpose. For us, I think that would mean thinking about our purpose and acknowledging the ways that our gatherings reflect our intentions as a congregation. At this moment, as we think and plan for coming back together after having been forced apart by the necessities of the pandemic, I think it's really important for us to be intentional, to be purposeful about why we are gathering. It means deciding what goes into our gatherings because it aligns with our purpose, and what stays out based on our commitment to that purpose. Now, I bet that you do believe that you do know why you are here gathered. Perhaps it is even more clear in your minds now after the pandemic lockdown, after isolation. We have been apart, and it has been so long. We long to be together. We believe we gather for friendship, companionship, fellowship, community. I think we even gather to know that there really are other human beings with lower bodies, not just disembodied torsos in boxes on a screen. We want to know if people actually have on pants. We want to know if their shoes are heeled or comfortable. We want to know what their actual backgrounds are in real life. We want to read body language again. We were taught to interact with full people. We want to do that again. Perhaps we gather just to feel the warmth of other bodies near our own. To look deeply in one another's eyes and imagine that we can really see their souls. We want desperately, furtively, secretly, sneakily to touch. I've heard parents and grandparents speak in the most poetic of language about the wondrous smell of baby humans held close. We want to be together. We want to gather. And we believe that that wanting is enough. But perhaps that wanting is not enough. The world's spiritual and religious traditions call people into community. While it is true that we may always actually be able to say our prayers in solitude, in our own homes, in our own individual and separate hearts, faith calls us into community. Largely home-based faith traditions like Islam and Hinduism, where there are prescribed rituals in the home each day. These traditions also ask their adherents to come to the mosque, to the temple, to gather in community. In Christianity, the very meaning of the word church is assembly. It's not the building. It's the assembly of believers. The church itself is the gathered. In Judaism, the worshiping community needs a minyan, a group of 10. In ancient times, 10 men only, but now, in some communities, 10 people of any gender. According to the Assembly of Reformed Rabbis, almost all Jewish prayers are in the plural, we, or ours, or us. And the Minyan encourages people to come together because having others with you brings comfort and inspiration. If you're too tired to pray, there's someone there to help you. There's someone there to lift you up. There's someone there to remind you. Community brings comfort and inspiration. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to affirm and promote principles which speak of the interconnected web of existence of which we are a part. We acknowledge, we promote, we affirm, we insist that we are not alone. But are we attentive, then, to the art of gathering? It is often said that in any congregation, everyone is a welcomer and a greeter. Each member is issuing an invitation to the newcomer and maintaining the connection with those who accompany them on this journey of living the mission and vision of this congregation in their lives. How might we equip all the members to be comfortable in the art of gathering? Now, we can use Parker's framework for this. And for her, we begin with priming, with preparation. Randa Sim says that 90% of what happens to make a gathering a success happens beforehand. So each of us should be prepared to greet and welcome, to tell the story of Shelter Rock with honesty and love, to know what parts of our mission and vision statements you can claim and hold in your heart. What is dear to you that is the message that you offer to someone coming into the door, and that you share with those who are already in the door? How do you live into that mission and own your responsibility for doing so? Our work is to be generous authority. That is, to take the responsibility for being prepared and present to facilitate gatherings. We must be fully present and ready for expansive questions and complicated answers and meaningful experiences. This is our holy labor, which brings life to this community. Understand that sometimes we need to just come and be. Sometimes this is where your recharging is, where your spirit is renewed, and you need to step back from being the generous authority. You need to not be the host of the feast that is Shelter Rock, and that's okay. But each must take their turn in being the host, being the person prepared and present to welcome and greet. When we gather, we might begin with what we know as the expected etiquette, right? Be on time, shake hands, wear your name tag, all of that stuff. Some of those are assumed to be common rules of good behavior, but we can't stay there. We can't rest on those common rules, because they aren't common for everybody. Following the old rules that say that there is one way to do things is not true hospitality. It is exclusionary, as a matter of fact. It says that some people's way of doing things are right and other people's way of doing things are wrong. It doesn't give us a space to learn from one another. It won't work here, where there are so many people who come from so many places and with so many different backgrounds. Here we need to be a place where there are actually pop-up rules and rituals, which are invitational. Because to be bound to one etiquette book or Robert's Rules of Order does not suit every purpose or all people in all instances. The old etiquette would limit us. Continuing to follow old patterns which have no meaning do not give life to our gatherings. It may be that a one-size-fits-all behavioral standard or rules of behavior don't allow enough flexibility for us. Each gathering might take the time to determine its own covenant to fit its purpose. Can you find ways to build expectations, rules of behavior, and engagement which fits the need of us, the gathered? We need to take the time to explore what works for us. We need to take the time to build our own covenants, our own common known rules of behavior, our own expectations for how we are to be as a gathered community. It needs to match the purpose of this community. We may not be conscious of it, but every gathering is a kind of social contract. And every social contract is about community expectations. All the gatherings come with expectations. Sometimes, however, it's only through conflict and friction that those expectations get clarified. And that can be painful. Conflict is very, very hard. We have to hold each other through conflict. We have to believe that we are actually strong enough to get through the hard moments, not back away from them. Move in, engage. Go through the conflict to resolution, to reconciliation, to renewal. If we don't, the conflicts will come back around. We need to believe that we can be a community of creative conflict, that we can learn and grow and be stronger. We must build a space to hold our troubles as we grow into our shared expectations, as we move closer and closer toward the beloved community together. Our gatherings together open passageways and doorways to greater connections. If we can just be vulnerable and honest and use our strength and passions for the good of the whole community. And it is important that each person feels seen here. In her book, Parker notes this. A 2001 Johns Hopkins study found that when members of a surgical team introduced themselves and shared their concerns ahead of time, the likelihood of complications in that surgery and the likelihood of deaths fell by 35%. Surgeons, like many of us, assumed that they shouldn't waste time going through the silly formalities of seeing and being seen for something as important as their mission to save lives. Yet, it was those silly formalities which directly affected the outcomes of the surgeries. Even with such complex and intricate work, it was when the nurses and doctors and anesthesiologists practiced good gathering principles that they felt more comfortable speaking up during surgery and offering solutions. I say that our gatherings as a community of faith and commitment, is just as intricate and complex as surgery. And just as much do we hold the potential to be life-saving. We have to tend this space with realness and revelation, allowing realness and revelation to occur more often. Take the time for deep listening, for deep connection, giving of ourselves and receiving from others. Remember the ways that people went out of their way to help during the pandemic. During lockdown, people delivered meals, made calls, became Zoom tutors over and over again. Shared vaccination advice. We can bring this energy, this care to each other's well-being with us now as we gather. Life did continue during the pandemic. During the lockdown, we were there for one another in some really remarkable ways. I hope we remember that and continue that. I think that this community does need to go out and tell its good news. Share the good news of Unitarian Universalism and the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. But we don't actually need to make stump speeches. We don't need to campaign. We don't need to prove ourselves so much. Even though sometimes it seems like that's our job as members of this congregation and as Unitarian Universalists to make the arguments to justify ourselves. There have been times when UUs were even invited to come up with elevator speeches. Did any of you do that exercise? You have your elevator speech ready, right? That was, you should be able on a quick elevator ride, perhaps between floors 4 and 5, to explain Unitarian Universalism. Now, I really like this concept I've been reading about with Parker, where she talks about not stump speeches, but sprout speeches. Sprout speeches are spontaneous conversation starters which engage with each particular moment. Invite people to interact with your story. We need to share stories of our experiences, of our living, more than just ideas about how things are or ought to be, not just having some set idea about how we're going to interact and what we need to know and do. We need to do things together so that we do get to know each other through shared experiences and build a common story. Realize that every gathering does not have to be a happy one. It just has to be. I can say with all honesty that in the many recent memorial services held here, and unfortunately, lately there have been many, I can say in all honesty that these gatherings were wonderful gatherings. That is, they were gatherings full of wonder. We got to be together. We got to learn about people who were important in our lives and in the life of this congregation. We got to hold each other close. We got to know that we could support each other, that we could help families when they were at low points in their lives, that we could hold all that. We were full of fellow feeling, full of meaning and purpose, and also very full of grief and sorrow. Those memorial services and this congregation needs to be and do all those things. This congregation needs to hold all those things: the joy, the sorrow, the memory, the hope. This is why we gather. This is our purpose. And when we gather, may it be so. Amen.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.